Buttons, buttons, all they talk about are buttons. The story of Coraline Jones reminds you very much of this situation. Monsters and humans going missing everywhere and never showing back up. It all comes down to a doll. The doll usually looks like the person it wants, with buttons for eyes. Buttons, buttons, that what drags them there, buttons. You do not know why people are attracted and want to go to these places. You have never been, and never heard of the place, but know it exists from all the missing children's reports, from all the missing monsters. Just a few weeks ago, a monster by the name of Blueberry Sands went missing. Sands, or Blue as everybody calls him, was a very happy skeleton. He had no reason to want to leave, but he did. This piqued your curiosity most of all. See, you were a detective in the town and wanted to figure out why everybody was going missing. You had no clue at all and wanted to know as much as possible. You found out it has to do with one house in particular. You got your things ready as you walked to the front of the door. This was going to be a very long day, and you knew it by just looking at the house. It was run down, pink of all things, and looked like it had multiple stories in it. As you got closer, you started to look around. The place looked almost abandoned. All monsters and humans who had lived here had left a long time ago. This was just like the storyline of Coraline. You take a deep breath before walking into the building. Because of your height, you look quite like a child, to be honest, around the age of 15 or 16, even though you're way into your 20s. You slowly start to look around the location, room to room, house to house. You then walked into the middle housing. As you walked in, you looked around. You saw a painting of a little boy eating ice cream. Interesting. You walked and you walked until you met into a living room-like area. As you looked around, you noticed in the wallpaper seemed to be a door. You gently walk over to it and peel back the paper that's covering it to look directly at the door. It looks like it needs a key. You were about to walk away from it when the door burst open. Yeeks! You jump back in surprise. As you do, you notice a little boy sitting there. He looked up at you and smiled and chuckled. You look back over at the painting that you saw earlier. It was the exact same boy. What was going on here? The boy then crawled through the tunnel, yelling, "Catch me if you can!" You quickly got on your hands and knees and started to follow him. You had no idea why you were doing this or if you should be doing it at all. It didn't take too long for you to get back to the area that you were at originally, but the whole entire room seemed to be decorated and designed. It was weird. Strange, to say the least. You never seen something so beautiful, yet you are already in this room. Why does it look so different, unique? You continue to walk around as you start to hear voices, giggling children, and laughing. Could this be where everyone has disappeared to? As you looked around, you started to notice all the pictures of people's faces had buttons crocheted into their eyes, or sewn into their eyes. It was kind of confusing. You didn't quite understand it. As you walked around, you noticed a mirror. It seemed to be kind of broken in a way. You gently touched it as you noticed your hand face through it effective immediately. You quickly pulled back. You look around to once again hear the children laughing as you hear a giggle or somebody talking. You are very confused. You look back towards the mirror and gently walk through it. As you get in it, you notice the room was dusty, old, and destroyed. This looked absolutely horrible compared to the rest of the place. Why did it look so broken? You walk through the room and start to hear sobbing. It wasn't laughter no more. Crying. Someone yelling out for help. As you look around, you notice the bed looks like there was somebody or multiple people laying in it. You gently walked over to the bed and removed the sheets. As you do so, you see a bunch of ghost children float up. And one that stands out the most is the monster boy that went missing a while ago. He seemed to be small, around 3 foot. You were very confused, 'cause by the looks of it, he did look to be a child, but he seemed to be an adult, fully as he spoke.
Human, you need to leave. It's not safe here.
His voice echoed up and down as he tried to speak, trembling as he spoke, as he was terrified to figure out what was going on, and that there was another person that could die here. You gently bring up your notebook and start writing notes, effective immediately, as you start to write down the description of everybody in the room. You looked up at the skeleton particularly. He was short, around 3 feet as you can guess. He was wearing a blue jacket with bones on it. Some skulls, some bones, and he seemed to be very short. He had a long blue bow on his back. He looked absolutely adorable, like a child. You quickly shook your head as you started to speak. How did you all get here? What's going on? Please do tell me, what's with the button eyes? After doing so, the skeleton starts to speak again.
You see, human, eyes are the way to the soul of the human and monster body. If you remove the eyes, you remove the soul. Replacing them with buttons makes us trapped here.
Trapped? What was going on here? You were highly confused. All the souls around you looked terrified and scared. You looked at the monster once again, but realized one thing in particular. He was a monster. Their souls aren't the same as humans. Maybe you could save one person, one monster. You quickly rushed out of the mirror as you hear the little monster scream again.
Don't go!
You quickly run down the hall as you notice all the little children playing. As you notice the little monster standing there with them. He was a skeleton just like the one you saw in the mirror, button eyes and everything. He came up to you with a laughing grin.
Hello, human.
He was different, but yet the same. You grabbed his arm and you dragged him over towards the mirror. He was confused until he saw the mirror and started to try to pull away.
What are you doing? Let's go.
As you dragged him into the mirror, you pushed him in and walked in as well. The monster that was standing there soul looked down at the copy of itself, confused on what was going on. You then took a deep breath and started to explain. Listen, monster and human souls aren't the same. They have different properties and connections. So, if you reconnect with your soul, which I believe is inside of this thing still, do you think you might be able to take control of it? The monster looked at you confused for a minute before shaking his head yes. A few seconds later, he connected with the body. As he does so, the body seems to spaz out and fall to the ground. This is so confusing. A couple seconds later, the body sits up. The monster soul is gone, but the skeleton looks up at you with a happy grin.
Me again, but still have these button eyes. Thank you so much.
The other ghost children looked at him confused, happy. At least one of them will get to leave and see their family. You gently took the skeleton's hand and you dragged him out of the mirror. A few seconds later, you were out into the door frame again, crawling away. as you hear a loud voice speak out. Sounds! Where did you go, brother? You were highly confused and terrified, and pushed the skeleton ahead of you and kept crawling through. In no time you were back in the same broken down house. The skeleton looked at you confused, yet happy. Even though the buttons on his eyes showed no emotion, he was happy to be free. So, you started out to speak. You wanted to ask him a few questions. How old are you really? I mean, some people don't look their actual age. Some people say I look 15, sometimes 16, and I'm in my 20s. How old are you? He stopped for a minute before replying.
Well, first human, my name is Blueberry, also known as Sans.
You shook your head okay as you continued to listen.
And I'm also in my 20s.
That would make sense. He doesn't seem to be like the others, yet he has a childish nature to him. After a couple of slow minutes, you gently took his hand and walked out of the building. So, do you know your brother's name?
Yes, human. His name is Papyrus.
Papyrus. Yes, I remember that name. You know exactly where to find him. Come with me. I know where to take you. You gently grab his hand as you lead the way. About an hour or so later in the next town over, you finally made it to the door of Papyrus's house. As you knocked on the door, he answered it with a sigh.
Can I help you?
Can I help you? He said. He sounded quite broken, like he lost something very important. You're Papyrus, right? Yeah. Who's asking? You gently put over behind you the skeleton with the button eyes. I think this is your brother, and if you have time, I would like to explain what happened. Papyrus looked down at Blueberry, eyes opened wide, as he picked up his brother and hugged him with tears in his eyes.
Blueberry, blue.
Blue, blue, blue! Oh, I'm so excited to see you again, brother! His voice became cheery and happy. You smiled. It must have been a while since you last seen him. I feel bad for him, you said. Papyrus looked at you kind of confused for a minute. If you like, I can explain what happened. Papyrus shook his head yes as you all walked inside. After a time of explaining, Papyrus was happy just to have his brother. Blue invited you to stay longer, just for the night, so that you can at least get to know him better. You were his hero, and he wanted to know everything about you. You shook your head okay as you wanted to go lay down for the night and got settled in. As the night went on, you woke up to find Blueberry on top of you, straddling you. He chuckled and he said,
Oh, human, I can't wait to get to know more about you. Please, do talk.
You froze as you blushed softly before chuckling. You sat up and he sat right across from you as you started to talk all night long. When morning came along, Papyrus found you both snuggling with each other, arms in arms. He smiled as he left the room. Well, brother, I can see that you're happy now. And safe. That's all that matters to me. As the door slowly closed, you peek open your eyes and smile as you softly give Blueberry a kiss on his forehead. What a silly little skeleton.